Hi everybody, my name is Paul. I'm with Seibert for almost 18 years now, and today I would like to talk with you about data analytics. So this sounds like a try topic, but actually I will try to make it short while, and I would also like to discuss with you over the next days what kind of solution you found for yourself to track your marketplace performance. And maybe we can just exchange our solutions that we currently use, the tool stack that we use for it, and also experiences with using metrics to optimize your marketplace performance. I was responsible for our Linchpin intranet solutions for several years. And 2018, I started our Google division. So I'm used to both ecosystems, more or less. And when it comes to our data analytics stack, we actually rely on the Google applications more or less. So it's mostly based on services from the Google Cloud Platform. For those of you who don't know our product portfolio, just a short overview of some of our products. And why do we actually care about data analytics at Seibert? Let me try to explain it with an analog. What is actually mountain climbing, one of my hobbies, without a weather report? This can be quite dangerous and risky in the end if the weather turns out other than you expected. And if you have some kind of weather report, then this will make your life easier and make your mountain climbing much safer and easier for you. And if something unplanned happens, you might be prepared for it already. So what we want to do with data analytics is actually to help our teams, our product teams, to make better decisions in the end, to improve their marketplace performance, the installations, the revenue, and so on for the team. And in our organizational structure, we are rather decentrally organized. So we try to support those teams to in the end, make their own decisions instead of having one centralized instance for making those decisions. And now I would like to tell you a bit about 3 steps that we are seeing when we reflect on our own evolution of our business intelligence. The first step that we took, and maybe some of you are still in this kind of stage, was what we call the craft room. So when we were in this stage, we more or less only created reports ad hoc. So someone came and was asking for the performance of a specific app, and then we tried to find this information from different systems. So it was created ad hoc, and it needed a lot of manual processing. We would usually use Google spreadsheets, for example, and take information out of our Atlassian admin accounts, as well as some other systems where we were tracking the revenues and stuff like that. And then we were processing it manually. This was quite some work, and whenever you were done with this report, one day later, the report was already outdated. And it was a lot of work if you wanted to keep track of it. So that's where the next stage comes into play, what we call the manufacturer. In the manufacturer, we already managed to have some continuous data processing. So every day we are pulling out information, for example, from the Atlassian marketplace, but also from other systems, and storing it in a centralized data warehouse. And then we can create, based on that, reports that will always keep up to date in the end. So whenever I take a look at a dashboard that we created that way, we will always have up-to-date information from different sources. The third stage that we are actually still working on to get there, we would call the makerspace. In this case, you have a robust data model, and we already have like the most relevant information prepared, but the teams themselves could use all this kind of data to create their own reports and things like that in a self-service mode. That's something where we're still trying to get there. It works depending on the knowledge of the teams when it comes to data analytics, but this is still a next step for us that we are currently working on. If you think of your own team, which kind of stage would you say you are currently in? Who would say that you are rather in the craft room stage? Anyone that would say we are still creating reports only ad hoc if needed? Who would say they are in the second stage, more in the manufacturer stage? Okay, seems like that's more the baseline here. And who would say they're already in the makerspace stage? Jan, okay? Okay, I would like to talk to you later on and how you managed to go there. Yeah, and Jan, for example, if you have more experienced people, then they're already capable of doing those reports by themselves, so that's fine. But overall, for our company, it's still work in progress. What I would like to share next is like some of the steps that we took to come at least somewhere between the second and third stage. And what was important for us was actually to set up a specific team that's dedicated to data analytics. So we do have one development teams that mostly consists of or contains data engineers and data scientists, and they are working on all our data streams more or less and pulling all the data from different tools and information pools and then helping us to present it. And then we have a smaller team with people that are focused on business intelligence and the presentation of data. So they are mostly taking care of the visualization of data, for example, and improving that. That was a huge step for us, for coming from this ad hoc data collection and presentation to a more mature stage in the end. Then, when we started this team, it was the first time that we really thought through all those steps that you see a little bit lower in the strategy pyramid. Because, of course, we have a company vision, we have a company strategy, but all what you see here, like a data strategy, really doing data governance, wasn't existent beforehand. And we are only now starting really to working on a data-driven culture in the end. So that teams like Jan's team, for example, are saying, okay, we are already ready for makerspace mode, and we know we have a robust infrastructure here, and we are willing to play around and trying to get all the information that we need to make good business decisions in the end. So we are still working on that one. And that's something, yeah, that really also needs some effort, and you have to put time on it, and you need people that are really building up knowledge on those kinds of topics. So I would also love to learn more about how you handle this with your teams. Another important thing was here, if you only take like marketplace information, then it's easy somehow. But if you have a lot of different systems and you want to combine those, then sometimes it happens that you have different namings for the same kind of thing, right? So for example, if you have the Atlassian, in Atlassian it's called organization, and the same thing in our customer relationship management system, HubSpot, might be called customer. And then you have to try to match like all this kinds of different data to make it a robust data model in the end. And we are actually collecting information from those different systems, for example, in one data warehouse with BigQuery based on the Google Cloud Platform. And from that on, in this kind of streamlined data source, we can then start creating our reports. So I differentiate here between 3 different kinds of data. What I was mostly referring to, what our team is also mostly focused on, is capturing more or less more general app KPIs. Then, of course, there are some metrics around marketplace listings and some around app usage. When it comes to the most relevant app KPIs, as I mentioned, we work with Google BigQuery and then visualize data based on Google Data Studio. And that's just a small insight what such a dashboard could look like. So you can choose on the upper left side a product, and based on the product you chose, you will see different reports adjusting in real time, and we have several years of history here. So whenever you need to make a decision and you want to check metrics, for example, for the last quarter or for the last 3 years or whatever, you have all those information here permanently existent and available. And you can also, for example, switch the view and select a specific customer, for example, all based on those filters, and you can easily change that. You can also see, for example, if you have a renewal coming up, and you can react based on that and see what kind of churn rates you have, for example. So also deployment types and stuff like that is always here available. That's a different example here, also based on Google Data Studio. And the interesting thing about Google Data Studio is that you can easily configure those reports with some kind of a WYSIWYG editor. So what you see is what you get. And you can there integrate different sources. You can also add, for example, Google Analytics and things like that. And you can more or less get an overview of all the relevant information that you have and take a look at those charts. That's an important step for us to keep our teams informed and also see like the most relevant performance metrics. And I'm happy also if someone talks to me later on to see that we can present you more examples of this kind of dashboards. When it comes to marketplace listings, we mostly rely on Google Analytics here to also check, for example, for like if it makes sense to change product names, what kind of effect this has on the performance of the listings. And we also can use Google Analytics in Data Studio, which helps us, for example, to create full funnels and see how people are moving from interest to desire to action, and they are already buying then and potentially then later on going into app usage. And when it comes to app usage, or that's just one example here of a Google Analytics dashboard. I think you know it, but at the same time you can take those widgets and also integrate them in Data Studio, for example, to get a better overview of the performance from listing to buying customers and potentially to churn or renewals. When it comes to app usage for the cloud apps, currently we mostly use Amplitude. But we are also thinking about integrating more app usage metrics also into our BigQuery data warehouse, as well as having those information also on the Data Studio dashboards. So we can round up more or less the overview of our app's performance in the end, and just help our teams there making better decisions. So what I would like to ask you, if you are interested in exchanging more or less or discussing your own tool stacks and how you're working with it, or if it's about experience with product decisions that you want to make data-based more or less, then just reach out to me. We are happy to discuss that, to also share with you some of the dashboards we are currently using. And I hope that this could be some kind of exchange between vendors to see how we can help each other in the end to improve our overall marketplace performance. Thanks a lot. I'm looking forward to getting to know some of you, and just please reach out if you want to exchange experience.
Big applause for Paul. Questions? First. Acknowledged.
Hey, so in your demonstration, you spoke more or less about, it seemed like data silos. So you had some CRM and transactional data, you had your marketplace data, and then you had your Amplitude product analytics data. Can you talk about what you've done, or if you've done anything yet, to merge them, to kind of cohere those different streams of data together?
Yeah, I can try to. Actually, I'm not a data scientist, so our team could tell you a bit more about that. But we are using several services to, like data prep, for example, to prepare the data before we put it into the database, into the data warehouse. And then based on that, we have one database, more or less, where we can pull the information from.
So to clarify, although you spoke of 3 different sources, you are actually pulling them into a consolidated data warehouse,
that's
so you
correct.
can query across the sources.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that was basically my question.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. So I'm not sure if we can cover this now, but maybe I'm interested to talk to you later as well. So you are using Amplitude for your app analytics, right? How did you approach it with all the GDPR restrictions? How are you dealing with that whole thing with tracking and analytics?
Yeah.
And on what level are you tracking activity within the app? Is it on an organizational level, or site level, or user level?
Yeah, actually we have Julian here with us, so I'm happy to bring you together with him because he's on a development team and he can better answer that question. But yeah, we had to restrict a lot of it so to comply to GDPR. So that's a huge issue, of course, and we try to, of course, accommodate with it. But let's talk with Julian about it, and then we are happy to exchange ideas there. Boris?
Are you doing any kind of reverse, are you doing any kind of reverse ETL? So once you get data back into your warehouse, are you then, let's say you get some data from Marketplace, you get into your data warehouse, are you then pushing back to HubSpot, reverse, et cetera, essentially, ETL use case?
Yeah, so we do have different directions where the data flows, but we would have to look into the specifics. So we try to also show some data in HubSpot, for example, but I don't have a full overview of the different data flows. But our development team is taking care of that, and they are constantly deploying also new functionality in bi-weekly cycles. So, yeah. Let us take a closer look at that, and I can show you an overview.
Hi, I'm Attila. What was the most surprising thing which you realized while analyzing your data?
So I think, I don't know if it's the most surprising, but the hardest part was actually to come to the point that your colleague mentioned before, when he said, how do you somehow, if you have those different sources, how do you combine more or less the different namings, for example? Because we do have quite some customers with holding structures, for example, and then it's a tough decision. And we actually used a hackathon for managing to organize this kind of information, because somehow you have 2 companies that sound pretty like the same company, but actually it's different companies. And sometimes you have different names, but they belong to the same group or holding structure. And then we had to take care of that. So that was actually something where just the amount of work that we had to do surprised us, definitely. Because it's like thousands of customers that we had to go through also manually and organize them, and then decide whether it's one organization in the end or it's different organizations. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much for your questions. We have not enough time to answer more, but if you have more, just go ahead, ask Paul.
Thanks.